Hi everybody, I hope you are all well. It's only been a week since you last saw me. I'm getting better with the amount of time it's taken me to do my reviews. But to be fair, the last book I was reviewing was like 800 pages long, so you can understand why it took me a little longer to get that one finished and my review uploaded. So, not much to update on life because it's just been a regular week of work and such, which is just no fun to talk about, really. I did though watch, finally got around to watching David Copperfield, the 2020 version with Dev Patel, and it was one of the worst adaptations of David Copperfield I have ever seen in my life. It was terrible. The aesthetic was lovely, the cast were great. It was just the writer just butchered the book so much. I was appalled, absolutely appalled. And David Copperfield is one of my favourites of Charles Dickens' works. I think it's extraordinary book, and yeah, to see it butchered the way it was, I couldn't believe what I was watching. So yeah, add David Copperfield to the list of the worst adaptations I've seen so far this year, along with Persuasion. I've just realised I got into Sanditon this week because series 2 started last week here in the UK, and Sanditon just kind of passed me by. I wasn't really interested in it. And mine and my sister's bestie, Sarah, hi Sarah if you're watching, she said to us, okay, look, the first series of Sanditon isn't that great, it's not strong, but the second series is absolutely fabulous. You don't necessarily have to have seen the first series, but it's a good idea because of connections of characters and everything. So I sat and watched the first series, and it's okay, but it's not anything special. And then series 2, the first episode had aired when I started watching Sanditon, and I was like, hello, the first episode of series 2 was fantastic. And so I've gotten into Sanditon, and also great adaptation I also got into Emma from 2020, because again, this is the thing, because of COVID, in the UK cinemas shut, but like in the US they were still open. So like Sarah, she was saying, I can't believe you've never gotten around to watching it. But the thing is that because in the US where she is, cinemas were open, it was fine. But in the UK it fell when cinemas were sort of shut or shutting, or so it just like I couldn't get to see it. So now I feel like I'm catching up. And so Emma and Sanditon, yes. David Copperfield and Persuasion, no. So I've kind of been watching lots of period dramas and such this week. But anyway, let's talk about a period drama-esque book that I've been reading, which is Catherine Cookson's The 15 Streets. I really like this cover, I have to say. I don't know why, I just find the bold yellow just really interesting for the choice of cover. So in case you hadn't seen previous videos where I've talked about Catherine Cookson, I got into her stories thanks to the TV dramas. Because the drama channel here in the UK show them quite often. It's like a Sunday afternoon, fills in like a 2 to 3 hour slot on the schedule, easy viewing as it were. And I started getting into them, and so I bought the box set of DVDs for my birthday, and I love them. And my sister just so happened to have 16 of Catherine's books in her house that she wanted to get rid of, so she gave them all to me for my birthday. And so I've read one so far, and this is the second. So the 15 Streets, it doesn't explicitly say when it is set, but it implies it's like the early 1900s, like even like 1900, 1901 kind of time. And it follows a family who live on the 15 Streets. And the 15 Streets are a series of poverty-stricken streets in northern England where you might have, I obviously I don't know if this is if you've come across this term, but you might have to with back-to-back houses. So that is literally just rows upon rows of houses that very small, they're very thin, kind of tight houses in loads and loads of rows, and they backed onto each other. So there was just, it was a lot of people crammed into a very, very small space. And so yeah, so they live in these kind of back-to-back houses and in an industrialized area in the north of England. And so yeah, she isn't very explicit about exactly where it is, but all of her books, unless she's because of plot purposes, unless she needs to tell you where exactly you are, she won't tell you. So it's kind of like, okay, so I think this is probably, it's around the Newcastle kind of area of northern England, but it doesn't explicitly say. And in this the 15 streets live the O'Briens, who the mum, Mary Ellen, has had 11 children. She's heavily pregnant with her 12th at the age of 45, I think she was at the beginning of the book. And her eldest is John. John is a wonderful character. He's so warm and loving and kind and generous. And then the next child, Dominic, is polar opposite. He is horrible guy. In the drama, I'll talk about it a bit more later, but they're played by Owen Teale and Sean Bean, and it's great casting, I have to say, but I will talk about that in a bit. And they both work, in industry and such. And the youngest child, obviously apart from the baby yet to be born, is a girl called Katie, a really loving, warm, beautiful, radiant, innocent child who is excelling at school. And she has hopes to become a teacher. And John encounters Katie's teacher and finds himself quite drawn to her. Her teacher is Mary. She is of a higher class, and her family can't understand why she works. They just cannot get their heads around it. She doesn't feel comfortable in her own level of society, but then again, she's completely separated from the level of society of the children who she teaches. So she's kind of trapped in her situation, and it's all about the O'Briens and Mary and their interactions with each other and a romance that blossoms from that interaction. So yeah. So first off, I have to say, this felt very, very different from A Dinner of Herbs. A Dinner of Herbs, you always felt that you were out in fresh air. Now, to be fair, that was set, the beginning of it was set in 1807. Quite different from 1900, 1901 because of the Industrial Revolution that took place and such. So yeah, obviously quite startling difference. But it is so atmospheric, and you really feel the industrialization that has taken place and the hardships that everyone went through. Catherine, very much because she came from a poor working class family, it was second nature to her. So she knows exactly how to describe certain things and the procedures to make things, wash things, anything like that. She knows how to do it. She doesn't hold back if it is relevant to the plot. So I've explained this before, like how in like the previous book, there was this whole situation to do with people going away and this, that, and the other, and it's like, we don't need to know about that. If it's not going to impact the plot, they're just literally going to leave this scene, and we're not going to talk or acknowledge them for a while because it has no relevance to what's going on. She's not going to go there, and like violence and such. If it's impertinent to plot, she'll cover it, else she's not. Violence is a massive part of this book because the O'Briens have anger issues in that, especially Dominic. They're constantly fighting, constantly yelling, constantly throwing stuff at each other. People are being thrown out of the house. They are basically entertainment for the neighbours. They're like, oh, let's see what fight's about today, and people watch them constantly, and it's so funny. It's that. And the very first line I'll read. Hannah, drop that and come and see. The O'Briens are at it again. Blue murder. Come on, come upstairs. You can see them from the top window. It begins in the middle of a fight and the neighbours scrambling to find good view to watch the fight happen. I love that. I thought that was a great way to start this story, and it sets the tone of this family for sure. Now, yeah, back to Catherine's writing. It is so atmospheric, this book. I felt completely immersed in the location and such, and I absolutely love how she describes especially the rivers, the water, which is quite important. I don't want to go any more deeper than that because obviously spoilers and everything. But also I found the way that she chose to write about it was so interesting because it's her way of, this is nature. She doesn't, in A Dinner of Herbs, she follows or expands upon nature versus industry by looking at the flowers and the natural plant life. But at this point in 1901, when the Industrial Revolution has happened, there is no greenery. It's completely sapped away from everything. So the river, the water, is the only kind of natural element that is around. Their surroundings. So the way that she describes it in multiple different ways, to how it can be very light and beautiful and soft and cleansing, especially when the men come out from work and they're covered in dust and all that lot and the cleaning and everything, to being a truly terrifying dark thing that could cause real damage. It's quite startling how she writes it. And yeah, especially a section later on, which when I watched the drama made me gasp. When I read the book, I was on tenterhooks, even though I knew what was going to happen. I was like, she had me hooked. She had me hooked. The characters in this book, there are, a lot less than A Dinner of Herbs, because A Dinner of Herbs covered about 40 years, so there were many characters in that one. But she does give everyone breathing space. I really felt that I understood, because the story, because of this interaction with society, you have, Mary with her family, Mary isolated, John with his family, and then the overlap that happens across them in society, rules and such, and the boundaries that society sets, and disturbing those boundaries. I love the things that she explored in this book. The ending I find really interesting of the 15 Streets, because I don't know how to describe this without spoiling it, but I will do my best. The concept of sometimes you have to do something that will break someone's heart in order to live the life that you need to lead is so startling and so wonderful. And it does make me think a lot of Catherine Cookson and her mother. I'm going to probably mention this every single time I review one of her books, especially because this is a second book in a row where I've had somebody called Kate or Katie, who is this absolutely glorified, stunning individual, because her mother, who was called Kate, was an incredible disappointment to her. and it was really tough on her. Her mother, she was raised to believe that her mother was her sister, and and she found out the truth when she was still quite young, but still old enough to understand what was going on. And her mother was an alcoholic, and they had a very, very hard relationship, very tough to go through. So in her books, whenever she writes a character called Kate or Katie, they're usually these most glorious, wonderful characters, as if she's trying to write the perfect version of her mother. And what she did with Katie in this book, knowing that, that is really startling, what she did with Katie. So I always find myself kind of in awe of Catherine. Whenever, as I'm reading it, I'm thinking of Catherine. I'm thinking about what it must have taken to write these stories using her mother's name and such. And oh, they're just wonderful stories to get lost in. They're wonderful stories to just see a perspective of England, of historic England, that just doesn't get written about. Now there is also in this some terminology that some people might find a bit offensive, but the thing is that it racism. But the thing is that language that is being used, it's not just Catherine saying, this is how I feel about these people in society. It is a racist character who is saying racist things towards a family. So it's pertinent to the story. But just FYI, that there might possibly be some language in there that people may not find comfortable. But let's not forget that this was written, actually, when was this written? The exact year. Oh, no, find the copyright. 1952. So our society now might feel very differently about some terminology that 1952 wouldn't have thought of. It wouldn't surprise them, that language being used. So yeah, just so you're aware of that. But I love also that there is also a character in this who has severe learning difficulties, possible mental health difficulties as well. But it's hard to tell because obviously at that time, mental health and learning difficulties and such weren't necessarily explored in the way that, or known about in the way that they are now. So it's very hard to pin down exactly what the learning difficulties or difficulties are that this character has, or possible mental health related issues. And so, yeah, it's hard to say exactly what they are suffering from. But I love the fact that when she introduces this character, Catherine writes something like, I didn't mark it, unfortunately, so I was really stupid to do that before I did this review, but she says something like, the way in which everyone in the 15 Streets describes this character is, and then she puts like ... queer. But that in no way means that she was not able to lead a normal life. She was able to do everything that everyone else would do. She would just approach it in a slightly different manner. End of. So I love the fact that she stuck up for a character just straight off and said, don't you dare. Somebody may say that she is this, but that doesn't define her. She's able to do everything that everyone else is able to do right here in this book. So don't you dare judge her for that. I loved that Catherine did that. Loved it. And I could tell, you can always tell in her books that all of these characters she had encountered in the course of her life. She knew, like the neighbours who peeked out of their windows and such to see the warring neighbours, the family that was screaming their heads off and throwing stuff at each other and everything. She knew all of these people that were selling things, washing things, the men who were going off to work. She doesn't hold back on language as well, that when people have arguments, she has people swearing their heads off, women, children, everyone, because it's the natural human thing that happens. She doesn't hold back in that regard, and I love her for that. I thought it was a great read. It's only just over 200 pages, so I read this in a day. It's very well paced. The build up, especially like I said, the big thing that happens near the end of the book was so striking, so startling, and just beautifully written. I loved it. I loved it. And I have to say, it's an unconventional story. And I find that so interesting that she chose to write it. I'm not saying that, convention, she should have followed convention and then she, would have made more money or whatever. No, far from it. It's the choice to do that. Because some people feel like, oh, I've got this formula, this works for me, so I'm going to stick with this formula in every single book, and because I know it works and it's easy money or whatever. And Catherine went, no, with this book, no, I want to do something different. I want to play with this, see what happens. And she wrote a really great book. And it's only a short book, like I said, just over 200 pages. But it pulls a punch. It really does. It really, really does. And I just want to very quickly read a little bit. So this is chapter 2, where she's explaining about the 15 streets. So I'll only read a little bit of it. But, poverty is comparative. There are those who did not live in the 15 streets who considered the people living there to be of one stratum, the lowest stratum. But the people inside there knew that there were 3 different levels, the upper, the middle, and the lower. All lived in houses, either upstairs or downstairs, but in the lower end, each house had only 2 small rooms, and upstairs or down, the conditions were the same. The plaster on the walls was alive with bugs. They might only appear at night to drop on the huddled sleepers, but that strange odour, which was particularly to its own, wafted through the houses all the time, stamping them as buggy. No one went to live in the lower end unless he was forced to. To the middle and upper 15 streets, the bottom end was only 1 step removed from the workhouse, for its inhabitants were usually those whose furniture had been distrained or who had been rejected from their former house for non-payment of rent. There were 3 nightmares in the lives of the occupants of the middle and upper 15 streets, and those were linked together. They were the bums, the lower end, and the workhouse. So in less than a page, she has said, okay, actually, you think this is all one society? There's actually 3 levels, and this is how it works. And to do that in such a simple way, but you can visualize the rooms, the rot, the disgusting bugs, and the terrible conditions. That takes skill, and I applaud her. I applaud Catherine for what she did. So yeah, I really liked this book. Very striking compared to A Dinner of Herbs. But yeah, very interesting. Now, the drama, as I said, Sean Bean, who's here on the cover from the 15 Streets. So he plays Dominic, the bad brother, and Owen Teale plays John, the good brother. Those 2 are so good in this drama. It's like, my God, the talent bouncing off each other. It's just amazing. And I have to say, now that I've read the book, I think probably because it's so short and everything, the drama's only like an hour and 40 minutes, so it's much shorter than all the other Catherine Cookson dramas. It is by far, I think, one of the best adaptations of a book I have seen. I am not kidding you when I say that it is like word for word transferred from the book to the screen. That is insane. That it was like, even like the visuals of each room, the location in the scene is played out exactly on that drama. And I'm like, you don't get dramas that do that nowadays. My God. My God. I really like the drama. I think that actually I ranked the dramas. I've got them on my phone right here. I can't remember. I think it was like 4th place, was it? Oh no, 5th place. It's out of all the dramas, it's my 5th favourite drama. But for a straight to straight adaptation, my God, they excelled themselves with the drama of this book. It is so well done. Even like reading a book and trying to take in the visuals of what Katherine is presenting to me directly onto the screen. I'm floored by how well they adapted that drama. And yeah, it's really good. If I'm able to find any details of the drama on YouTube, like a trailer or a clip or something, I will include it in the description. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to see the trailer, please do. It's so well acted, so well put together. As I said, Sean Bean and Owen Teale, they are incredible in this drama. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. So those are my thoughts on The 15 Streets by Catherine Cookson. So it's time for my 3 questions. Would I read this again? Yes, definitely. I think this would be like a really good like palate cleanser book for me. Like if I need to pick up something that I know that I can get through easily, but you know, give me a really good story that's a bit dark and sinister, but it's got like a romance element in it, and you know, just something that I need just to cleanse my palate. I think I'd turn to this. Would I read any more Catherine's books? Well, yes, of course, and I've still got like another 14 of them to go. Oh no, 15, because there's that other one that I got. So yeah, about another 15 to go in my bookcase right now. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yes, I definitely would, but I would flag, as I said, there's some language that might be now some people might not be comfortable with, but it is pertinent to the storyline, and it's literally like 1 or 2 sections that it's referred to, and that's it. It's not, as Katherine, you know, with I've seen throughout Dinner of Herbs and the 15 Streets, if it's not pertinent to the moment in the book, it's gone. Don't care, it's out. So yeah, it only happens a couple of times. So those are my thoughts on The 15 Streets by Catherine Cookson. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comments box below. Leave me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Tell you to let you decide. And I'll be back with my thoughts on my next read, which I've already announced, which is Tash Hearst Tolstoy by Catherine Ormsby. So I've never read Catherine's work before, and I got this because at the time of it coming out was when I was reading like War and Peace, I think it was, or when I was reading Anna Karenina. Oh, I think that might have been actually the same year that I read the 2 of them. I'm not too sure. Oh no, because I read War and Peace in like the January, so I think I read like Anna Karenina, and then in like the November time of one year, and then I started reading War and Peace in the January. So I think I must have got this for Christmas, or like in between. But yeah, I've never gotten around to reading it. I will now. So I'll be back with my thoughts on Tash Hearst Tolstoy as soon as I'm done. All right, guys. Bye.